Hello and welcome to 2B2T. Now, this video is going to be a little different. I'm going to tell you how I fell down the rabbit hole of 2B drama and intrigue. So those of you who have known me for a while, or from at least from the early days, will know me as a lone player traveling around, visiting old bases, a little bit of building and trying to help new players with kits and stuff at spawn. But a year ago, this has all changed, and here is what happened. So first we need to go back to August 17th, 23. So server just updated. It was a mess, as those of us who were there at the time will remember. And I got a DM from a player I'd never heard of. Not unusual, occasionally does happen. Now, this player had found one of my kits at spawn and was curious about it. So we talked for a bit, and he talked about our experiences on 2B Const. And he talked a little bit about a group he was a member of, and that group was the Spore Masons. So we talked again a couple of days later, and I started to express an interest in this group. After a couple of days, I received an invite and was invited into the Discord as a guest Mason. About a week later, I was added to a new channel, which was for an ongoing base called the Isle, which was in the end. However, I didn't immediately travel out because at this point there was talk of a possible rollback. This was when we had the poll going. Didn't see much point until I knew what was going on to actually make that journey. So once the server had rolled back and re-updated, I then travelled out to that location. About a month later then, as we got close to October, I asked about holiday builds. Halloween wasn't far away, and I was kind of interested on building something for Halloween. I was told about the party committee, joined, was given permission to take part as a builder, and became a member of the party committee. So things going well over the next several months. I built at Christmas. I helped out a few lodges. I volunteered several times to help people. Even went as far in January as building my own lodge. March rolls round, and I get the shock of my life. I get a message saying, "Congratulations on Yellow Name." Yellow Name basically means I was made initiate, which was I was being considered to become a full Spore Mason. Was not expecting that. I hoped eventually I would learn that position, but I expected it to take close to a year, so I wasn't expecting it to happen quite so soon. 23rd April, and I am initiated. So at this point, I am a full Spore Mason. Hence why there's been so few videos, because a lot of the bases I was at, I couldn't exactly record. So I carried on, doing what I could to help to the best of my abilities until beginning of July, and then things changed. Beginning of July, I was kicked from the group. So you might be wondering yourself at this point, how the hell did I manage to get myself kicked so quickly, less than a year after I became in as a guest? How did I get myself kicked from the Spore Masons? So what I told you just then was true, but I left some bits out. Now, quick disclaimer here, you may be noticing we're at a place which has clearly been griefed. This was a lodge I built beginning of June, which unfortunately was griefed when we were here. This was my second lodge. And I felt it's kind of fitting for me to record this video in this location. So, right, so let's get to it. So first of all, we need to go further back. We need to go back to March 23. In March, I received a message, and yes, I am trying to read a script while flying and doing very, very badly. Why are we surprised? This is me after all. Okay, so March 23, and received a DM from a new person who is also plays on 2B called Catgirl Lana. So over the following weeks, we chat a few times and eventually start VCing, hang out a few times on 2B, 9B, and a couple of times on Constantium, as well as a few times on the PvP servers. As the months go by, we start to become quite good friends. Lana is one of those people I am so glad I got to meet. She really is. So Let's say as months go by, we become more closer and closer friends. Now, Lana is an amazing PvPer, skilled griever, and has connections to 5C. So when I first got messaged in August by Spore Mason, I told Lana about it, and she saw that was the perfect opportunity. So she asked me if I'd consider joining the group and acting as her insider. I was a little bit reluctant, to say the least. So I asked her to explain. Give me a good reason to do it. Why was she so. Why did she want someone to do this? So she explained a few things that had happened, her concerns about the Spore Masons themselves, and some of the things that happened involving other members. I'm not going to go into details. These will be covered in other videos in better detail than I can do here. This is just going to be me giving you the story of, from my point of view, of what I've been up to. So, with what she told me, it was enough to give me some concern. So, I agreed to do so on principle. However, I wasn't taking Lana 100% on her word. Sorry to say that, Lana. I wanted to have a little bit of luck for myself. So I know sometimes things get misunderstood, can be exaggerated. We put our own personal feelings into what we tell people. And I understood that. So once I managed to get that invite, I spent a little time in the Discord, in the channels I had access to, doing a bit of reading, looking up on things for myself. And with what I saw, I was not happy. I really was not happy at all. It didn't take me long to be 100% on board. Again, I'm not going to go into details. I'm sure some of the people who were my former friends, who are still a member of the Spore Masons, if they're watching this at this point, will be screaming at me, demanding to see proof. You can see the same things I did. Okay, this is not going to be me bringing up as much evidence as possible to bury you. That will be happening elsewhere. So, yes, after a little bit of time, a little bit of digging, I wasn't happy at all. So I was 100% on board. So, very early days, I didn't know anybody. I was new to the group, had no connections. Everybody else who joins normally joins because they're already a member of different groups and have friends already in there. I was having to start from scratch. Now, just after the rollback, and I headed out to the Isle, Lana had a chat to see how things were going, and I mentioned I'd been invited out to a base called the Isle. She asked if it was okay if I'd be okay with her passing on some information to Orson, the head of the fifth column. Now, I understood exactly what I was doing, and I knew it would involve potentially stuff getting griefed, and I knew we would need assistance for that. So I said okay. However, I requested that my name kept out of it for the time being. So Lana passed on the information that she potentially had an insider, and I was at a base called the Isle. At this point, then Lana came back to me and started asking for the location of the Isle. So I originally had planned. I understood that if I was going to be acting as an insider, that would require me leaking bases. So I knew this was going to happen. However, I didn't want to do so soon, especially as I was very new. So I told her that I planned to give her the coordinates near the end of the year. We talked for a bit, and eventually Lana managed to bring that down to a month. And then after a lot of discussion, I agreed I would give up the location. However, they were not to act on it for at least a month to give me time to get a little bit of momentum going, get to know a few people, and try and get myself in a more comfortable position. As you can imagine, that month didn't happen. So, less than 24 hours after I gave up the coordinates, the Isle was gone. To say I wasn't happy is an understatement. However, I'm not going to get into details of that conversation. To this day, I do not know how I survived without any suspicion falling on me. I was new to the group, I'd come out of nowhere, And within a couple of weeks of me being added, base they'd had for, from what I can remember, over a year, or at least early a year, was gone. But yeah, I survived. But I realised I couldn't risk something like that happening again, so I spoke to Lana and told her I needed direct communication. So Lana set up a group chat with myself using an alt, her, and Orsond. Yes, an alt. Did you really think I managed to go this at a time? Undetected by using my main Discord account. Of course, it has to be an alt. So now as a group, we were able to start discussing and working things out a little bit better. So first, when it comes to something I regret. So with loss of the Isle, there was no really easy way for me to gain any momentum going, and I was starting to struggle a little bit. So it was suggested I ask about party committee. So party committee is a separate Discord. However, it is run by Spore Masons. It was originally founded by Boomerang Village. And while it is a separate Discord, which allows other people from other groups to join and take part, it is run by Spore Masons, and therefore it is seen as a Mason group. So I asked about holiday builds, voiced an interest in potentially building something for Halloween. I was told to speak to a few people and quickly managed to get myself added as a builder to the party committee. Now, this is something I regret, and I will be completely honest here. If I could go back in time, I would definitely 100% change what happens here. Because initially, the plan was the party committee was a means of me getting closer, getting a little bit of momentum going with the older members, allowing me to progress. And it was not to be hit. I voiced that I didn't want the party committee to be griefed. As weeks went by, that changed, and I must take the full blame for this because the decision to greenlight it was mine. And I don't know whether I was getting a little bit caught up in things or what was going through my head. However, I did greenlight the griefing of Halloween, and that's something I regret. And later on, a couple months down the line, when Christmas came around, originally I said we're not griefing Christmas, we're not going to be Grinches. We'll let it go because I'd already regretting Halloween. However, that didn't happen. And again, coordinates became known, and I greenlighted the grief. And I regret this. I regret it. I regretted it at the time, and it's one of the things that brought me closest to breaking. A couple of days before the event for Christmas was due to happen, I had a chat with Orson about it, and I pretty much broke down because I had been working with people for weeks at that location, and I was getting close with a lot of them. I liked them, we were getting on well, and yeah, I felt awful about what I was doing. Now, I could have potentially have called it off. I don't know if it would have happened, but I didn't. And that's on me. So, those of you who are involved right now and probably angry with me, you have every right to be. And you'll be happy to know that I will always regret the decisions I made concerning the party committee. Doesn't change the fact that I regret it because I still did it. I'm not going to hide the truth about my actions in this video. I'm going to try and be as honest as I possibly can. So, which then brings me to a couple little things. So, first of all, if you happen to be watching this, Cammy, or hear about it, I owe you a little bit of an apology. As you probably guessed, it was me who leaked the coordinates to your lodge that you built just before Christmas. What you don't know is the 5C account that flew across it at the time you didn't know it was 5C was actually being flown by me. And when the same account a week later flew past Dan Ducky's lodge. That was also me. A lot went on in that. So yes, that account is a shared account between me and Lana. So not always has it been Lana on it. Sometimes it's been myself. As you probably imagine, Lana was not in fact grid searching, even though we did our best to make you think that. Wasn't necessary to grid search because you had me. Though a few attempts were made to try and find lodges ahead of time, ones that I didn't have coordinates to, potentially if we could find them and grief them before the actual happened. When I didn't have the coordinates, then any possible suspicion would be taken away from me. After all, you can't leak what you don't know. I did try and keep the leaking of coordinates for bases to a minimum to avoid suspicion. If it happened too often, it would have taken them long to start looking at things in more detail. However, since it was only now and again, it was often chalked down to bad luck. The only times pretty much when I did greenlight it was when I felt we had no choice or if it was strictly necessary. So I knew if it did too much, a lot of suspicion then would fall on me. So the whole plan of this was to try and get me to the role of Spore Mason. So if we did too much, that would jeopardize that. So as you know from what I said earlier, by the middle of April, I was up for the vote and became a full Mason. It was necessary for that because it would give me access to more locations, such as Industrial Park, Cave, which would have been the next Sky Mesa type base. I was already, as a guest, added to a base called Thalassa, or sometimes just referred to as Water. Also, there would be a chance then for me to get hold of Gringotts coordinates, which I managed to get the coordinates to one of them. But doing something like this over a long period of time takes its toll. It burns you out, and it's not an easy thing to do. So once June rolled around, I voiced a wish for this to come to an end. I couldn't keep going any longer. I was already well aware of how close I was getting to quite a few of the members, and I knew the longer this went on, the stronger that bond was going to get, and the more it was going to hurt those people that I cared about once the truth came out, because I always believed eventually I would get found out that no matter how much we tried for me to get out without anybody knowing it was me, it wasn't going to happen. So once I let us know that it was time to bring things to a close, we started to put a plan in place. We had a location of quite a few places, and the decision was to try and hit them all at one time. Make it hard for anybody who was able to react. So we spent it over 2 days. The first day we hit the Gringotts. So what we did first of all was the week before we moved counts out to each location and set pearls, and then left a pearl loader in each place so we could then just very quickly load ourselves to the new location, one after the other. So the plan was, and this is how it went off, is to hit the Gringotts first and to steal the stash, which we did. We managed to steal the entire Gringotts, move it in about 3 hours. We did get a bit unlucky there because when we got there, made a start, started clearing the pearls, avoiding the ones that we knew belonged to proxies. However, one of the pearls was mislabeled, and it was one of the proxy pearls, activating it and therefore setting off the alarm. So proxies were then quickly killed. Because of the way it was laid out, we'd hoped to be able to at least remove some of it before the proxies became aware. But once the proxies knew we were there, we knew the clock was ticking. So we were already set up and planned for the moving, and we managed to move the entire stash in 3 hours. It was insane. It really was. But we did it. I think we were all shattered at the end of it. But we had it all planned and set up ahead of time. The location it was going to, who was doing what, and where, and what group was in charge of which bit. So it was very well organized. Um, Now I knew there was a possibility suspicion may follow me early, so we kept a close eye on the Discord. However, nothing was said. So when the lodge came round on Saturday, I told a little lie, said I was away for the weekend for my anniversary. Now I didn't lie about the anniversary; it wasn't actually my anniversary that weekend. But we wasn't away, and I set myself up. Told them I could VC but couldn't actually be in game, and then told them my mic was busted on my tablet. And I'd only brought headphones, not a headset, so I could listen and not speak. Set up to record, and then jumped in VC with the rest, and we started moving out to the various bases and locations to grief them. And over the next several hours, I think about 4 to 5 hours, we took out the industrial park, water base, and cave. We left one small base left, which, if plan was to hit the following Saturday, if I survived. So the plan was, if somehow I managed to avoid being suspected, the following week we were to show up at the lodge, not grief it, just stand there and stare, and then move to the final base and grief that. A little bit larpy, but hey, we're only human. However, I didn't expect to survive the weekend. So come the Monday after everything had happened, as you can imagine, the leaders of the Ball Masons weren't particularly happy. They just lost an entire Gringotts, plus every base that they currently had going had fallen in the space of 24 hours. Nothing was said, no fingers were pointed. And I was in a private little Discord with a few of them who I was closest with, because we had our own private base. I got a message asking whether I could jump in VC, and load some pearls because they wanted a bit of a break. I wanted to come out and do some building. Not seeing anything to worry about, I did so. I jumped in VC, loaded the pearl, and then now this was the person I loaded was the person I would say I was closest to, and I think this was person was perfectly chosen this role, because once the pearl was loaded, he asked me point blank, had I been leaking to the fifth column, that there was plenty of evidence that was pointing to me. Now I could have lied at this point, as you can imagine. For 10 months I'd had to have been lying, and while it's not something to be proud of, I know how to lie well. And potentially I could have managed to persuade him that I was innocent, or at least put enough doubt in the mind for them not to immediately be certain that I was the one who was guilty. But I couldn't do it. When the moment came, I could not lie to him. I knew the truth would be coming out soon anyway, and the thought of fooling him, tricking him into believing that I was innocent, while knowing the whole time I was guilty, and then for him to find out a few weeks later, I just could not do that to him. I really couldn't. So I didn't admit to anything, but refused to give a straight answer. The fact that I just wouldn't deny it or give any clear answer, and I just left the VC, was enough. I suspect he went back and spoke to a few of the other members, possibly the worshipfuls like Entropy and Toadrak, about what had gone on in the conversation, and probably felt that my reaction was enough, and I was then, 20 minutes later, was kicked. And say they're unhappy with me would be an understatement. However, I don't blame people like Boomerang for being angry at all, because he was my friend and I was his friend, and I betrayed him in the worst possible way. So yeah, I don't blame one bit for their anger and hate at me at the moment. However, if Boomerang, you happen to be watching this or have gotten this far, there's some things I want you to know. Like I said, I know I deserve every bit of anger and hate you have for me right now. Not just you. I know I hurt you a lot. I also hurt Dark X, Young Cappy, Meg, and several others that I was close to. And that's something I've got to live with. But I knew from the start that any friendships I made during this time was unlikely to survive. And that didn't stop me. I believed what I was doing, and I still believe to this day. I believed in it so much that I was prepared to sacrifice those friendships. There are people I'm friends with and close with from before this who've known me for a good while, some of them close to a year before all this. And I knew there was a chance I could lose those friendships. That them finding out that I teamed up with the fifth column to do something like this could be a deal breaker. And losing those people would have absolutely broke my heart. But even that wasn't enough to stop me. I believed in this so much that I was doing the right thing, and I still hold I was doing the right thing. I was prepared to lose those friendships. And I know this seems like a strange thing to say, it's probably not going to bring you much comfort, but hoping you to help you realize that this wasn't a whim. This wasn't me being evil and just wanting to make people hurt. I genuinely stand by this, that this had to happen. The Spore Masons have become corrupt. You can't see it because you're so close inside. This isn't the group it was when you joined. I know me telling you this is probably not going to make any difference, but unfortunately, it had to happen. Sometimes history needs a butcher, not a shepherd. And seeing what I did, seeing what I saw inside the group, seeing how people reacted to other people who had been former members. I'm going to use Enigma as an example here. When some of the information from the catalogs was leaked to ZeroNeb, everybody was convinced Enigma was behind it. I saw the comments everybody was making. You had no evidence to make you think it was Enigma, but you jumped to the conclusion it had to be her. As you may have guessed by now, it wasn't. It was me. Because you assumed everything was done at the same time. It wasn't. It was done over several months. Different things were taken at different times. I saw comments and conversations you had about other people like Silver Eyes. How can you be okay with this? How can you not see the corruption at your heart and look away? So, yes, it breaks my heart that I lost you. And believe me, I have I have cried many times over this. But somebody had to take a stand, and you needed the right person to do it. And unfortunately, that person had to be somebody like me. Somebody who has strength in their beliefs and believes in people and is willing to do the right thing no matter the cost to themselves. Because I knew this would come as a heavy cost to me. I know from day one what the price could possibly be. And believe me, I have hurt many times over the last year, and I have cried many times over you and other people, and the fact I was on this path. But it had to happen. You need to wake up and see what's really going on under your own noses, inside your own group. And hopefully one day you'll realize that and look, instead of ignoring the blatantly obvious. Anyway, I think this has gone on long enough. Once it's all over, I spoke to quite a few other people who I was already friends with, and explained what I'd really been up to. I knew there was a good chance I would lose them as well, but I didn't, because they knew me, they'd known me from before, they knew the sort of person I was, and they knew I would not have made any of these decisions lightly. And if I decided to follow this path, whether they agreed with me or agreed with my methods, they knew that I would have made this decision after thinking about it carefully. And I would have done so because I believed it was the only choice, and it was the right choice. And they've stood by me. Some have agreed with me fully on the path, others would have preferred it if it had gone differently. But they are still my friends because they know me and they trust me. So anyway, I think talked long enough. I'm gonna be honest, I'm expecting to see my subscriber count drop like a stone after this video. But that's not important. What is important is getting the information out there and making people aware of what's really going on. So, this is Old Lady North. Wishing you all a good rest of your day. Peace.